Hello, everyone. We at GHC are glad to have the honor of hosting our guest, Mr. Mehmet Orgen, at the Hyperloop Impact. Mr. Orgen is an ex Navy officer from Turkey, currently serving as the general manager of Ursias Holdings, an investment management company in Turkey. A distinguished person in the field of Hyperloop technology, Mr. Orgen and his company have played vital roles in progressing and promoting Hyperloop technology across the world. I am Harsha, and I'm Anurag, and we'll be hosting the podcast today.
Perfect.
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Organ. We are very glad to have you on our podcast. So I would like to begin off by asking you questions about your company. Your company is involved with various different technologies across the world. Can you tell us more about your company and what you do?
Okay. As you introduced me, I am Mehmet Orgen. I am, in my previous life, I was a Navy captain, and I was an electronics engineer in the Navy. And after long years in the Navy, I decided to move to a business era, and I got my master degree in energy and technology management. So 10 years ago, my last 10 years is dedicated to more technology rather than engineering, but technology covering engineering. And in 2016, I jumped into Hyperloop business, and even the Hyperloop history is just 11 years old. 2013, Elon Musk introduced Hyperloop into the world and asked companies, universities, and the institutions to work on Hyperloop. So in 2016, I personally met with Hyperloop TT founder and the CEO Dirk Albon at that time, and in a conference, in an innovation conference in Istanbul. It started that way, and my company actually. Erciyes Holding is a family conglomerate, and around 35, 40 years of history. And the main business is manufacturing tubes, pipes for pipelines. We have a capacity of 600,000 ton per year capacity, manufacturing capacity per year. Mainly oil, gas, water tubes, water pipelines, and our specialization is large diameter tubes and mass production and spirally welded tubes. What does it mean? It gives us more flexibility and easy to manufacture and the less costly spirally welded large diameter tubes. And our second business line is railway or rail wagon manufacturing. We manufacture rail stock products, especially freight wagons. And the third business is energy. We have renewable energy investments in Turkey, wind and solar power plants. We invest in a few power plants, and we operate those power plants. And another one is mobility. We manufacture e-bikes, cargo bikes, delivery bikes, mainly mobility products in Turkey, and market and sell in Europe, in Northern Europe, in Amsterdam. We have a company in Amsterdam. So if you combine all of these, pipelines and the freight wagon and covered by solar plants and the mobility, actually it is Hyperloop. The components of Hyperloop, even before Elon Musk, we have been doing elements of Hyperloop. But since 2016, we are involved deeply in Hyperloop, and I am in touch with almost all Hyperloop companies, almost not all, but most of the universities, most of the institutions all over the world, from Canada to Europe to India to China to Korea. I've been working with them, in touch with them, and also there is a very big interest in Turkey to Hyperloop. Many universities, and Turkey has its own Hyperloop competition. So I think as a beginning, this is fair enough for your question. If you need more, I can go into details.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. That was a very comprehensive overview, sir. Right, sir. Okay, so sir, so like as you said, sir, if you look at the timeline, Ursia's Hyperloop actually stepped into developing Hyperloop, fairly certain in the idea of Hyperloop life. Like Elon Musk announced it, and you guys started immediately in 2016. So why did Ursia's first step into Hyperloop? Because it was such a niche concept. It was considered fairly revolutionary, fairly futuristic. So what made you want to first step into Hyperloop, sir?
So as far as I understand, you are asking why did you jump into this Hyperloop? Why are you trying to develop Hyperloop business as an Erciyes? Is it correct?
Yes. So like, why did you first like? What about Hyperloop inspired you to join it in the first place, sir?
Okay, so uh, we have been doing Hyperloop business for a long time, but uh, our geography in Turkey, we have not as big as India, but between Europe and Asia, we are connecting bridge type of land. So we have a vast land, and our founder of the Erciyes, the family, Ahmet Erciyes, had this idea in Turkey to use current oil pipelines, but obsolete oil pipelines,
Okay.
to move goods, especially grains and the vegetables and the fruits, these types of things. So it started this way. And when we heard from Elon Musk the concept, and actually this is not a new concept, it is almost 100 years old work
Yes.
all over the world, in United States, in Switzerland, and the other, and also in Maglev and those type of things. It is very useful for especially freight logistics, for transportation, and also for passenger. And most of and lately we are dealing with, you know, Green Deal, and we are trying to reduce the carbon emission. So, and we are in need of energy. So Hyperloop is very energy efficient system, and there is no carbon emission,
Yeah.
and it is very fast. And so when we combine all of these, we agreed that we need to develop. And then, at the beginning, we would like to be the supplier of this concept, supplier to the Hyperloop companies.
Yeah.
But by the meantime, we would like to develop indigenous Turkish Hyperloop as well. So we established Erciyes Hyperloop company beginning of this year. It is a company now as a supplier, especially tubes, trucks, pylons, and those type of things. But our vision is to be a Hyperloop developer.
Fantastic, sir. So, sir, like as you mentioned, like GHC here, we're trying to conduct an international student competition. We're trying to form an international student community that's enthusiastic about Hyperloop. So, just to get an idea about how the general perception of Hyperloop is in Turkey. So, you mentioned that you are in contact with various teams, and you also mentioned that Turkey has its own Hyperloop competition as well. So, could you give us a bit of insight into how the enthusiasm for Hyperloop is in Turkey amongst the student community?
Actually, I have been in touch with you, and not directly you, but this is my maybe the third Zoom discussion with Indian colleagues, Indian IIT. It was in January. I was involved in Vegapod, I think, in a discussion about history of Hyperloop vacuum train.
Right.
And in April, I was invited to speak in this event in April. What was the name of the event? I can't remember. But
Yes, sir.
yes, it was that. And actually, I was physically invited, but the week before I was in Europe for another event, so I couldn't come.
Yes.
Also, I wanted to see your new 422 meters truck, when it is in construction phase.
Yes.
I was planning to do that, but I couldn't make it. But now this is the third time we are talking about Hyperloop. Actually, I am in touch with many of your teams: Ashwa, Avishkar, Infinity, Nirman, Vegapod, and I think these are the teams I was in touch since the Delft competition, Delft and Edinburgh, and also I was in jury in Canada, in Toronto, and in last 2 years I was also involved in Canadian Global Hyperloop competition as a jury member and a speaker. And lastly, in Zurich, we were together with some Indian teams, also other European teams, and the US and the UK teams. And in Turkey, we started, as I said, 2016, but in 2022, our scientific research agency, the governmental body, showed interest in Hyperloop. So it is the highest research and development organization in Turkey. So we, as a corporation, we established a 208 meters test track in Istanbul, and at the beginning around 30, 40 universities, 30 or 40, I mentioned, 30, 40 universities had shown interest. But this year, it is maybe you will not, it will be surprising that 241 teams applied, 241 Turkish teams applied for the competition. But this wasn't just application, only 21 submitted their technical reports, and among 21, 16 elected for this demonstration and presentations. So 2 weeks ago, we had this competition. So basically, I can say at least 50 universities in Turkey are working on Hyperloop to develop their own technology, and most of them were very successful, and some of them managed to levitate and to speed and the brake and make brake and the reverse back and communicate with the pod, the control station. So it was very successful. So I see the role of these competitions very, very useful. So before 2022, nobody knew in Turkey. I don't mean nobody, but very few people knew about Hyperloop. But this is a big competition, not just a Hyperloop competition. We call it Technofest, Technology Festival.
Okay.
So around 40, 50 different technologies. One of them is Hyperloop, but it was very successful. And so also in other competitions, the university or these kind of competitions help to bring the ecosystem together, to the companies sponsoring the teams,
Yes.
so they are represented in the competitions, and so the companies know each other, and trying to get whatever they need from the other universities. So these competitions really doing a lot in this developing Hyperloop.
Wow. Okay, so it's fantastic to hear that Turkey has such a motivated student workforce, sir. We hope to be able to inculcate similar Hyperloop enthusiastic teams around the world, sir.
So you need to one or two teams. You need to come to Turkey to compete.
Yes,
You need to apply as well. So
definitely.
I can facilitate, because I am also in the organizing body, and I am in the jury of the competition.
Yes, sir.
So we are also, as Turkey, we are also trying to make it more international.
Okay, sir.
So I don't know which team, Avishkar or some of the teams invited me to be a jury member. So if I get an official invitation to be jury member, I would love to be there. And because in Europe, in Canada, I really got some deep experience from the teams,
Yes, sir.
their reports and their presentations, their demonstrations. So I would be happy if you need any support or assistance.
Yes, sir. We would be extremely delighted to host you for the same, sir. And actually, speaking about that, sir, you have been invited as speakers and juries at various international Hyperloop competitions and conferences, and you have seen how different companies, how different student teams approach Hyperloop. So we were thinking, like, were there any extreme, like, any innovations? Like, how do you observe the different kind of work cultures across different teams? How do you observe different developmental strategies when it comes to, like, how do student teams approach Hyperloop? How do companies approach Hyperloop? And were there any particular ideas or strategies that resonated with you?
Uh, Actually, the idea is almost the core idea is, yeah, to develop Hyperloop, but each university, each team has their own technology, own approach, and some of the universities, let's say, uh, try getting enough support, enough budget from their institutions, from their universities, can show more than the other teams. But I think the leading company, the leading ones, yeah, there are few from India. I see in the competitions, Avishkar and Nirman, Vegapod, Ashwa. They are very successful, and the Delft and UPV. They are coming. They are university teams. They managed to become a company. You know,
Ah,
uh,
yes, sir.
Delft converted to Hyperloop Heart company, and which is very successful. So the competitions, the university teams, starting early enough in this development. So at the end, their vision, their aim should be to make it to become a startup at the beginning, and a developer, Hyperloop developing company. And also there will be enough work support, manpower support from these teams. And as I said, the leading ones, I really like I told about Indian teams and the Heart or Delft team. UPV team, and Civisport as well. Civisport is
Okay.
doing very great, and for example, I recommend to the teams not to bring their own infrastructure. In European competitions, UPV bring its own tubes, and Hart or Delft bring their demo test track, and it is very, very expensive to bring those infrastructure. So if you can provide, like as we do in Turkey, as you are trying to do in Chennai, is it correct? Chennai,
Yes.
Yes, sir.
the test track. So if we can this offer this test track, then the teams can focus on the technology, focus on their tubes rather than the other things. But these test tracks should give enough chance or possibility to different technologies, not only one I-beam track or just from the top or from the bottom. So
Yes.
there should be some different options for the university teams. And then, for example, also there are some university teams, they really presented very detailed report, technical report. So they did their homework very well. For example, the United States team, Texas Quadriloop, what was the name? Something like the Texas Quadriloop. They had really a good feasibility report about the routes, about the cost, about the those things, and so those technical reports are so very helpful, other than demonstrations. So that's why these competitions will help this concept to develop.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So,
As you mentioned, sir, cost is a very big factor for Hyperloop teams. And at GHC, with our long tube that we have developed here in Chennai, it is actually one of our main goals that teams from all across the world come here and test their pods and technologies on our test tube without having to, necessarily go into the long scale, spend a lot of resources on developing the infrastructure.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. That's what I mean. So that's why, as RGS, we sponsor the competitions, the overall competition. For example, we manufactured Turkish Hyperloop tunnel. We established here. Also, we sponsor European Hyperloop competitions.
yes, sir.
Delft, in Edinburgh, in Zurich, not specific teams, because this sponsorship, this support will help whole teams to develop, to show their business. So what you are trying to do is very, very useful.
Right, sir. And one question I had, sir, like as you mentioned, different teams, like you mentioned Delft, you mentioned UPV. These different teams are having different approaches to Hyperloop. Like as you said, some teams are going for a top track approach, some teams are going for a bottom track approach. So when you talk about technology developing at a global scale, what are the major problems that you see for Hyperloop technology in its development in terms of funding, in terms of integration of these different kind of ideologies? So how do you visualize Hyperloop growing in the future, and what are the major challenges that you think will face?
Actually, a major challenge will be to convince the investor, convince the businessman, convince the government on how useful this Hyperloop would be. So this is one of my role. I have been promoting this concept and the technology all over the world. So to some extent, I was successful in Turkey. That's why there is great interest in Turkey on Hyperloop. So one of the big challenges is, the government and the business and I think the academicians, the universities have enough interest, but from the business, from the sector, from the manufacturers, and from the investors. We need to get some more support. It's challenging, and also infrastructure cost is really an issue. But we should explain. We should compare it high-speed rail investment and the benefits of Hyperloop, for example, not just the speed or the but
Yes, sir.
energy efficiency is very important. We should convince people that, and also we should people. Some companies are working on for vacuum, sustaining the vacuum. This is a big issue, sustaining the vacuum in this long Hyperloop lines. If you can manage in a less costly budget to sustain vacuum, so manufacturing the infrastructure, we can handle it. We can have enough funding, but especially for vacuum, sustaining the vacuum, it is one of the challenging things.
So, like you said, it's very important to convince the governments and policy people in policy making positions about the importance of Hyperloop. You have worked in the Turkish Navy, and you also have some experience with NATO. Do you think people in these circles are aware about the Hyperloop and the ramifications it can have on transportation and technology on a global level?
Actually, I think I will not tell about the company name. We are working with a Hyperloop developing company. They applied for a NATO project, to make Hyperloop. Yes, to make a Hyperloop a NATO project, because NATO has a program. Its name is Defense Innovation Accelerator for the Atlantic, Diana, the
Okay.
acronym, Defense Innovation Accelerator for the Atlantic. So they are also, NATO is looking for innovative solutions for transportation. So Hyperloop can be used as a dual use. Okay, we can use it for passenger and cargo, but in wartime, we can use Hyperloop for the tanks and the big trucks easily and in a fast way to transport from one point to another one, and it is in the tube, so not visible. So. So I can say that if when we included AI and the quantum technology and the other things into this innovation, in the very near future, NATO and the national military organizations will use Hyperloop for defense and the military transportation. So it will be a fast solution. It will increase resilience. It will not be so vulnerable to external threats. It is a sustainable supply chain when we use it Hyperloop for this purpose.
Right, sir. Well, that's fantastic, sir. And given all the challenges that you have outlined in terms of developing the technology and getting the support for it, I think the Hyperloop community as a whole is very thankful to have you on our side. Right.
Yes, and maybe I didn't mention, or I think yes, you mentioned. I am a former NATO officer. I spent 5 years in NATO in the United States.
Okay.
I was the strategy and operations planning officer in my previous life. So that's why I know what NATO needs, and also when I was in United States, the NATO command was responsible to transform the NATO transformational command. So transformation means new way of making. Let's say war, but let's say keep peace, for keeping the peace. trying to find innovative solution. So that's why I am also, and also there is another institution in NATO, NATO Innovation Fund, NIF it is, NATO Innovation Fund, 25 countries, not all NATO countries, but Turkey is part of it, 25 countries trying to create fund for innovative solutions. So I try to bring also Diana and the NIF together. So I am doing a lot for Hyperloop, trying to do a lot.
Yes, sir. Cool. Finally, what would your advice be to student teams who want to, start a hire, who want to make the Hyperloop a reality, especially when they have low funds and low costs?
Yes, actually, as I said, first we should work and study hard the technology and the challenges and also not the just hurdles or problems, but we need to work on the solutions and also trying to explain these to the our faculty in in universities and the businessmen and the investors. And these competitions also will help to communicate these things. But as I said, since 2016, this is my 8th year. In 8 year, we really develop very extensively. And in our lectures, in my conferences, I tell all the students, all the teams, that this is the history. There are 4 types of transportation: air, land, maritime, and the rail transportation. The last one is air transportation. It is more than almost 1,020 years, beginning of 20th century, 1905 it started. It's around 1,020 years. But Hyperloop history is just 11 years.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
And in this 11 years, there is really big interest, and it is growing very fast. And what I say to the students and the participants, that now we are now part of the history. We are writing the history together. If you are sitting here, if you are, we are making this presentation or broad podcast. Now also you are part of the history. You are not watching the history.
Yes.
You are part of the history. You are making the history. So we all making the history. Hopefully it will not take too much time. In 10 years, what I see, there will be some operational lines, and in 2050s, I believe in that. In 2050s, we will have some commercial lines, Hyperloop lines, intermodal with rail and air and other transportation means.
It's
I think that's a great parting note, sir.
Yes, sir.
We at GHC are trying to do our own small part in trying to make the Hyperloop a reality. As we have said multiple times before, we are not just a competition organizing team. We want to create a global network of Hyperloop teams who can all come together and cooperate with each other, exchange technologies, and finally help us in our goal of making the Hyperloop a reality across the world.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
we will make it together. It will happen. I believe in that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
If you need anything, any assistance, so any companies, any universities trying to reach in Turkey or globally in Canada, in Europe, I can help you. I can support you. If you, as I said, need as a jury, as a speaker, as a mentor, I could be part of your efforts. So thanks for all your support, and hopefully our children, and definitely you and your children will experience this Hyperloop. But even I think that I could experience, hopefully.
Yes, sir. Well, that's it, sir. That's all we had planned for today. Thank you so much for such an insightful discussion and your opinions. Thank you for taking your time. We were really
Okay,
glad to have this podcast. And yes, sir, we will definitely reach out to you. We hope to collaborate with you further. And yes,
great.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
sir.
wish you success and good luck. Thank you.